Time's up, Admiral.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, loaded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2 is loaded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of their women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Val also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Now, while you can, monk boy.
Great Scott! Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with Alpha.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hail and howdy, everybody. Welcome to another Saturday Night Drive-In, where we sit back, relax, and talk about movies we love. At least we hope we love them. Because sometimes Jed disappoints me.
And sometimes Adam disappoints me.
And it has to ruin my childhood.
Like The Dark Knight.
No, yeah, we're not doing that now.
Yeah.
No. Dom, do you ever want to be on the show again, Dom? Do you? Know your place.
Yes.
Anyway, hail and everybody. We hope you're having a good Saturday because it's Saturday. You should relax, have a good time. And today we're going to be talking Top Gun. Jed, have you lost that love and feeling?
I have not lost that love and feeling. Every time I watch this movie, it gets reignited inside me and carries me through to the next watch through. Top Gun just, lingers, it kindles strong within me.
I know.
Awesome
This is let's be honest. This is good old fashioned American jingoism. That's what this is. This was middle of the Cold War America. Yeah. And it was just there were a couple of other fighter plane movies out there at the time. Like you had Iron Eagle, but that's as close as you got. Top Gun was something bigger and better, though. And it was glorious. Yeah. We're also joined by our friend, Dom. Welcome back, Dom. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, yeah. I can't wait. I saw you, put the thing out saying, hey, we're talking Top Gun. I'm like, oh, I love that fucking movie. I got to join you guys.
Hey man,
it's an awesome movie.
It is a great movie. It never disappoints. It's so good it earns a place on the physical media rack behind me. It's always a good time to feel the need for the speed. There's so many one-liners out of this movie. It's great. Before we get into that, let's say hail and howdy to the chat. Hail across both my chat and Jed's chat. We are happy you're joining us on this Saturday afternoon, early evening. We hope that you have a good time. And if you do, hit the like button. It's the easiest way to show. It doesn't cost you anything. Just a click. That's all it requires. Anyway. All right. So Top Gun, what is it? 86? I think it was 86.
86, yes.
86. I was a young lad.
Wasn't born yet.
Well, you're both.
Not to rub it in.
Yeah. You're both children.
Oh, rub it in. Yeah, I wasn't born for another 15 years, so yeah, it's a little before my time.
But yeah, as I said, this is to bring it up, just as I mentioned it, Top Gun was big budget, big box office, blockbuster. Everybody loved it, and it dominated. But there were other fighter pilot type movies, like I mentioned, Iron Eagle. But Iron Eagle became a low budget, multi-serialized, multi-movie thing, and it has its place in cult classic niche, but it wasn't Top Gun. I mean, Iron Eagle even had a Queen soundtrack in it, even borrowed from It's a Kind of Magic in there a little bit.
And it couldn't keep up.
And it couldn't keep up.
I never seen. Oh, sorry.
That's going to be the problem of any fighter movie. That's going to be the problem of any jet fighter movie, is being compared to Top Gun, and nothing will ever reach those heights and get up to where the original Top Gun was. These films, yeah, even if they are remembered, they're just remembered as, kind of like Top Gun, but not as good. And I do think that is a little disappointing that there's such a great film in this genre that the genre itself can't stand on its own without it. But at the same time, it makes me love this movie even more. So it's kind of a give and take with that.
And Drew D, Iron Eagle was Air Force. It was Air Force based, not naval based. But here's the thing also.
That's the one problem with Top Gun, is it doesn't show any love to the Air Force. I feel like this should have been an Air Force movie, done the Air Force's training academy.
You're only saying that because you're an Air Force veteran.
Yeah. It makes me a little sick to support the Navy.
But and what you look at it like this, and I know we're not really going to talk Iron Eagle, but I'm just using it as compare and contrast when we get started here.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Eagle, Lou Gossett Jr., fantastic actor, but the young dude they brought in, he was just a dude. But then you look at the cast of Top Gun. This is Tom Cruise. This is Tom Cruise during his ascension, essentially. Oh, look what I did there. He's climbing. He's going to rack up hit after hit after hit in the 80s and become a legitimate star. Anthony Edwards, while not as major a star, was a good co-star in that one, and would go on to have long-lasting fame on ER for a number of years. Then you got Tom Skerritt, veteran actor. Tom Skerritt. One of my favorites, Michael Ironside, is Jester. Love Michael Ironside. And then you had Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer, who was also on his rise during this period of time to also become a legitimate star, able to carry movies all on his own. And the rest was just little supporting actors here and there. You'd recognize them, bits and pieces. But it was a great cast that came together. And listen, so think about this. It's a Cold War movie, right? It's a Cold War movie.
Yeah.
Tensions between America, Soviet Union, allies, and the Soviets, this and that. And you go into it, but let's be honest, at 86, nobody knows what Top Gun means. Nobody knows. Nobody knows it's the elite fighter pilot training school that the best of the best go to be better. We don't know that. So you get in there, we get a little bit of a lesson. But you go in there and this is high-octane 80s action period. You think it's going to be a movie of constantly shooting down commie scum. But you don't get that till the end.
Yeah.
I mean, Jed, when was the first time you saw this?
Oh, I saw it as a kid, too early to remember. And yeah, just like you said, I went into it expecting an action movie because I was old enough to experience action movies, but that's not what I got. I got an actual well-written, character-driven story because this is 100% character-driven between mainly Maverick and Goose, but all the other characters grow and evolve in ways that make sense. And the action is light, but what the word I would use to describe this film is realism. And I think that's what brought people in instead of the action, because at the time, most movies, if they were doing fighter sequences, whether or not they were space dogfights or anything like that, all were forced to use models or far away shots that didn't look good. There wasn't really a great way to show aerial combat up until this point, and they just perfected it by using real jets, great camera work, and I just can't imagine how long it would have taken them to film even the smallest jet sequences in this film, because each take would probably have taken a good hour just to set up, because you have to maneuver everyone at supersonic speeds.
And it's expensive. We're talking about legitimate U.S. arsenal here. Fighter jets. These are, at the time, tens of millions of dollars, now billions of dollars. This is missed stuff. I mean, Dom, do you think that this is where Tom Cruise got his love for practical effects in his movies?
I've-
It shows how it wasn't Legend.
Yeah.
Shut up. Go ahead, Dom.
So, expand more on your question. Like, we're like,
Well, I mean, we know that Tom Cruise has gone to great lengths with the Mission Impossible movies in these years of heavy CGI because he wants a movie theater experience. And we know that when he decided to make Maverick,
yes,
he wanted to make sure he caught the same feeling. So, I do you think that this is the moment where he fell in love with practical effects, and as he got bigger and better, when he could get it, when he could do it, and say, "Let's do this," that he pushed for practical effects in his movies?
I mean, I would say so. Like, was this like his first, like, I'm trying to think, or other, was this like his first big movie?
Well, I would say big movie. He'd already done several. I mean, we'd had Cocktail already. We'd had.
I haven't seen that movie.
I think it could be said his big first action movie, like his big action movie.
This is his first super blockbuster success, I believe.
Yeah, okay.
Because everything else had been low budget or maybe drama based, like Risky Business.
Oh yeah, that minuscule budget.
Yes, that's just a
I don't think I've
regular
seen that movie.
drama.
And Rain Man, if that was before this, that's
this
all
later.
characters.
Rain Man's later.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say.
I don't think. Well, all right. Judy says it. Let me look it up. All right, now we're gonna have to look it up. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Oh, while you look that up, I personally believe that it was the thing that started his love for practical effects, because, like we said, this movie I think is the film that can be most credited for his rise to superstardom. Like he was a known name before it, but this is what made him a legitimate movie star. So of course he's going to have some love and some nostalgia for this film. Not so much that he desecrated its grave or anything with Top Gun Maverick too much. And so when he came back for Top Gun Maverick, he had love for the story, and I actually really enjoy that film as well. But so yeah, he looks back on this film, remembers, hey, we made such a great product, had such a great time doing it with all these practical effects, with realism being the front. I don't ever want to do a green screen. I imagine he's had these conversations where he's like, I don't want to just do green screen acting for the rest of my life, because the real actors, the real best actors, they hate green screen acting. I always look to Ian McKellen on the set of The Hobbit. In the first one, he actually broke down in tears because he said this isn't why he became an actor, just to act in an empty green room. And when there's real talent involved, when there's real professionals, they want to avoid that as much as possible. And Tom Cruise got a great dose of what real action and real stardom and real blockbuster can look like early on in his career. So of course he's going to intend to replicate that as much as possible.
And this was his first major blockbuster, because we go here. I was right. Rain Man was 2 years later. I was wrong. Cocktail was after this. He had basically done small stuff. Like before that, Taft's Risky Business, All the Right Moves, and Legend were basically the only thing where he got any sort of attention. And then here's Top Gun, where they took a chance on him and he nailed it. And after that, Color Money, Cocktail, Young Guns. He was in Young Guns?
Uncredited.
Uncredited. All right, Henchman, uncredited. So I guess they kind of stuck him in there. Rain Man, Born on the 4th of July. I mean, right here. This kicks it off. You look at where he goes from here. All these movies: Rain Man, Born on the 4th of July, Days of Thunder, Far and Away, A Few Good Men, The Firm, Inner Vampire, Mission Impossible. It's essentially one mega movie after another, and he's working every single year. Tom Cruise never took a break for like 20, 30 years. Look at this. Every year, something, sometimes 2 years. Tropic Thunder, Valkyrie. I mean, now not all of these are, great.
It's War of the Worlds is not good. I'm going to say that. That's after the decline of Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, I mean, Magnolia, Vanilla Sky. No, not that great. Eyes Wide Shut. We can talk about that.
I didn't see that.
Jerry Maguire is great.
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's a meme at this point. Jerry Maguire's a meme. It's a meme. So you look at all these things, and they just keep going and going and going. And here we are now. It's what is that? 40 years later, almost, and he is
Top Gun's almost 40 years old.
Yes, I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we know.
Next year.
Yeah.
So answer your question, Adam. I would say yes. I mean, this kicked off his great career.
So this is Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was asking, like, would you agree, like, he's like the only like true movie star left now?
He's last man standing.
Mhm.
He's like
Yeah.
he's from that. He's the last one of the last guys standing from that era who is still trying to make a movie. I'm going to say Harrison
Yeah.
Ford is still active, but he's grumpy old Harrison Ford.
Yeah,
He shows up for a paycheck.
Yeah, I think the wrong word would be sold out, but it's kind of like that with Harrison Ford, where he's just showing up for the paycheck, back up a dump truck full of money,
He
and
doesn't
he'll
have
do
the
whatever
passion.
you want.
Yeah.
He's that's exactly right. He lost the passion to be a movie star, and I don't think Tom Cruise has yet.
He wants to entertain people, and that's
Mhm.
why. And Tom Cruise is one of the guys I always hold up as he is a crazy MFer. He is a crazy Scientologist MFer. But you know what he never does? He never pushes his Scientology on you.
Mhm.
He never tries to tell you what to do. He just shows up and wants to entertain you and be a little weird sometimes. That's it. And that's why I don't have a problem with Tom Cruise in general. And frankly, I enjoy his movies. I have some of a Tom Cruise collection. I'm still building my collection. Still a few movies left I want to put on there that I really like. But it's a pleasure to usually watch one of his movies. It is. And
even if it's not going to be great, you know you're going to have a good time, and you're going to see that it was made with passion and a want to entertain the fans.
Yeah.
A lot of movies these days feel like they're coming from a place of vitriol, like they're trying to lecture the audience or berate the audience, or straight up saying, "You're evil, audience, give me money." But with Tom Cruise, you're never going to experience that. I firmly believe that. Even some of his other movies that I've seen, like American Made, is not a good movie. I don't know if you saw that a few years ago.
No, I haven't seen
it's
that one.
not good.
No,
but you can tell that everyone on set is still having fun. It was an enjoyable work experience, and that bleeds through to the audience.
And who is the guy? He is the guy that came out at a crucial time and said, "Thank you, audiences."
Yeah, that was a great message.
He's the one that thanked people.
Yeah.
Because he understands if we don't show up, it means nothing. I mean, that's why during the recorded meltdowns he had during COVID, nobody really ripped into him for it, because he had his own money invested in that movie. He was trying to get it right, and he said, if we don't follow these retarded rules, we can't make our movie. So if I'm yelling at you, it's not because I'm angry, it's because I want this to work. And I don't want us to lose our shirts over this. We are here to entertain, and let's thank the audiences. So that is why this is like, Jed, what is this, the 4th or 5th time we've done a Tom Cruise movie?
We've done quite a few, especially A Few Good Men is one of the greatest movies ever made, in my opinion. I love that movie.
And the next one I'm going to put up when we take a little break, so we have to keep between. I'm going to bring up Far and Away, because that's a fantastic movie.
Is that bad? I haven't seen A Few Good Men. I don't think I've seen
Yes,
that.
that's bad. You're in
That's
cloud.
really
you
bad.
need to go see
You're
that.
in cloud territory now, Dom.
I feel like I've seen Far and Away. Is that the one where he played the Irish boxer?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Well, not the boxer. For a moment, he fights in that. But yeah, that's him and Nicole Kidman, Cole Meany.
Back when Ron Howard was a good director.
Yes, and it's a fantastic ride, and a low key, you don't know it, low key fantastic score by John Williams. You don't know it. It's one of those underrated ones that nobody knows about, but it's an incredible score. So it's Tom Cruise is a joy to watch. It simply is, because as Jed said, even if it's not going to be a great movie, he's there to do the job. Very simple.
He's one of those guys, like if he sees a movie, like I got to see that movie.
Well, and like you said, he had his own money invested in a lot of his more recent projects, and that's because he knows he has more money than he'll ever need, and that just shows how he's not here for the money. He is doing this for the craft. He clearly loves his job, and who wouldn't under his circumstances? And so he's dedicated to ensuring that the audience gets the best product that he can physically give them, from pushing himself physically with his stunts to putting up his own money at risk, and just taking on the stakes himself. And I think that's a really impressive thing these days.
And it's
I didn't realize that this was going to be a Tom Cruise love fest stream instead of a Top Gun.
Well, we're warming it up.
We're warming it up.
We had to set the theme, man.
Adam is a simp.
I'm not a simp.
I'm surprised the chat hasn't
kidding,
tasted. I'm surprised the chat hasn't asked us how his dick tastes at this point.
Well, I only do it with bananas. So
Yeah.
anyway, all right. So now Top Gun.
Yes.
Essentially, it's a pretty simple movie. Tom Cruise, Pete Mitchell, Commander. No, wait, Lieutenant Commander? Lieutenant Commander. Lieutenant Pete Mitchell, fighter pilot, flying the F-14 Tomcat, which you don't think is an impressive jet, but you realize it was a masterful feat of engineering of what it was capable of doing. Him and his partner Goose, who actually I don't know Goose's name. Do we know Goose's name?
They do say it at some point, but yeah,
Maybe.
I don't even remember Maverick's real name half the time. Their call signs are their names, so
yeah, Goose.
Just Goose, yeah.
But so you got Maverick and Goose. They're hot shots. They're on deployment on a carrier. I guess it's the Indian Ocean, if I remember correctly.
Yes, Indian
Ocean. And they have a run-in with some MiGs, and that's our first taste. And you go into it for the first time thinking, oh man, we're gonna be getting all kinds of fighter pilot shit going on here. But no, it's just a taste of what you're gonna get of the practical effects essentially, like Jed described earlier, how it's gonna be. And after an incident, I believe it was Cougar, the guy who was being tapped to go to Top Gun, he loses his edge. He freezes up in the air after the incident, and Maverick and Goose were next. So now it turns into it's basically adult high school is what it is. It's an adult high school movie where Maverick and Goose are the unpopular kids, and Iceman and Slider, they're the popular guys, and everybody's trying to get ahead of game, be cool and be the top gun. And it's basically a competition. And you don't realize, but of course, wrapped up in it, you have a great friendship story between Maverick and Goose. You get a love story between Pete and Kelly McGillis' character, whose name just escaped me.
Charlie.
Charlie.
That's your call sign, at least.
Yeah, that's all I ever remember, Charlie. And then you have it's a pseudo father-son type of thing, because early on in Jed, would you say it's good, proper exposition dumping where we learn about Maverick's family history with his father in Vietnam?
It's introduced in a lot of subtle ways. I think the one exception to the quality of the exposition is near the beginning of the film, where his commander, what's his bucket? The principal from Back to the Future, when he says, your family name's so bad, you got to be better than everyone else. That sequence, I think, was a little ham-fisted when it came to the exposition, but the other examples of it throughout the film, I think, were really subtle and, of course, made sense for the character. Once you learn about his character, it doesn't feel like something tacked on. It's the motivation for pretty much everything he's done. He's trying to prove that he's the best of the best to recoup his family's name. So, of course, he's going to take unreasonable risks and do things that violate orders and whatnot to accomplish the mission as well as he sees. Yeah, and buzz the tower. He wants that attention so that people will see, hey, maybe this family name isn't so bad. And it's not one of those things where it's like, you know what, we kind of just need some family drama because we need to fill up some runtime. It feels integrated in a way that's essential. This movie, without his father's story, even if in its limited sense, would take away a lot from Maverick as we know him. He'd just be a generic hothead without that. He'd really just be a simple character without that.
And like the generic hot-headed bad boy who's rebelling against authority.
Yeah, just because rebellion is hip. And that's not what we get, and I think that's a great thing.
I mean, he rides the motorcycle without the helmet. He will be the first guy to hit on the girl in the bar. And now, right away, we'll sort of mosey through, I guess, the timeline of the movie in terms of this. I always look at this movie as made up of several major scenes and the in-between stuff. Because you get the opening sequence of the interaction with the Soviet MiGs, which is fantastic. We get a taste of the practical effects, and we get introduced to our characters very well.
Can we talk about that for a little bit?
Oh, go ahead. Go right.
Just real quick. So yeah, that opening sequence, of course, like we've both said, a lot of people came into this film expecting a big action film. So they gave the audience a little bit of that and promised more to come. And I think that was a great way to open it. If you had skipped over that scene, the plot might have felt like it was meandering a little bit. The pacing would have been too slow. We needed that initial jolt of energy to get the plot going. And one thing that I love about it is it's depiction of kind of PTSD when it comes to Cougar, because as someone who was in the military, obviously I never served in a combat zone or anything, I'm familiar with the stakes of warfare and familiar with the cost it takes on people who have been in situations like that. And in the 80s, that wasn't a common thing to show. That was the era of the big muscle roided out Arnolds and Stallones, where they were just tanking people, killing hundreds of people. And don't get me wrong, those movies are fantastic, but the cost of warfare was rarely shown because it was unmanly.
Except in Rambo 1.
Rambo 1, I think, would be a big exception to that. But Cougar really isn't judged. No one judges Cougar for losing his edge. They all realize that they're one bad day away from being Cougar. So they want to help him, of course, and maybe see if he's not as off the rails as he seems to be, because they want someone to be able to do that for them when they reach that point, which is obviously set up for when Maverick nearly falls off the edge later on the movie after the big death.
That's why that's so good, because what you don't realize is that this is a hero's journey story. It's and that when Goose buys it in that tragic moment, that is the point where the hero reaches his lowest point, and then in order to be a hero has to climb out of it and restore his self-confidence. So and you don't know it's a hero's if you don't know the hero's journey pattern, you don't know it, and if you do know it, you don't realize it until that moment.
That's when hero's journey is used the best, when it's subtle and you don't really know it's there.
Because you look at this whole thing right now. So they get to go to Top Gun and they get there. And I would say that the movie is punctuated properly with the jet fighter sequences. They don't constantly throw it at you. It's good pacing. The word is pacing. Yes, good, Adam. Use the right word. Pacing between slow down character moments and then let's get in the cockpit and just fly through the air at Mach 2. And it's incredible. But you get once they get to Top Gun, you get the character stuff. It's right away, essentially super jock central. Is that a good way to put it? Super jock central. Egos. Massive
egos.
Yeah, because if you're in that kind of situation and you are flying not supersonic jets, you know what I'm saying, super fast machines like jets that are going Mach 1, Mach 2, you have to have some kind of an ego to be able to compete and do that kind of job and thinking, I am the baddest MFer out there. You have to.
They're all competing with the number one guy, right? So they're all. Are they all getting like a certain amount of? Isn't it great about a certain amount of points they were trying to get?
Points for successful completion of the test and this and that, to then be the top of your class. You get it on the placard, you get the award, and you get your choice of probably deployment.
Because like it was like early on in the movie, they were saying the best of the best are on the wall right there, and Tom Cruise's character, what does he say again? He goes, "I'm going to be there" or something like that.
Well, him and Iceman have an exchange of basically who's going to be there, and then we'll see who's there at the end. And that's a great introduction of Kazansky, the Iceman. And once again, I am also a big fan of Val Kilmer, because Val Kilmer is one of those guys who can transform himself for a role, and just the slick arrogance of Iceman.
Oh, you can tell right off. Right.
Here's the beauty of this movie: there are no villains, in this movie except for the commies. Commies are always villains.
Not really to a whole extent after, besides the actual fight sequences. Like, they're not some looming threat that you're building to or anything like that. They're scene villains, not movie villains.
They're thematic scene villains. Good way to put it. But Iceman's not a villain. It's just it's real competition against your brother in arms is what it is. And even in the lowest moments, they have their tension moments like, you're dangerous. You're dangerous. Yeah. Now that's actually one of the cheesiest moments of the dialogue in the movie, because did you ever see that Saturday Night Live where Val Kilmer was guest host and it was Iceman after Top Gun and he was an airline pilot and he just kept repeating in the cockpit, everybody's dangerous. He's dangerous. It's actually a pretty amusing skit. It's the 90s, so it was when SNL was still funny. But that's a cheese line. Like, you're dangerous. I can't trust you up there, and I have to be able to trust my wingman. And it's fascinating that at the time where you want this to be a hypercharged super action movie, there's no real villain. And it's surprising that it can get away with that. Go ahead.
I don't think it's a very bold statement for me to say that Iceman's my favorite character outside of Maverick, because he's a perfect dichotomy for Maverick. Maverick, of course, is the instinctual pilot, the emotional one, and Iceman gets his name for being as technical as possible. And both, outlooks on life, outlooks on flying are entirely legitimate. You have to have a degree of instinct to be able to react at those speeds. Your logical mind cannot process what is happening at those speeds up there. So you absolutely need the instinct, but the more by the books numbers thing is a great way to address problems and deal with situations. So they're both very legitimate, and I love how both characters find out that neither of their methods is entirely perfect. That, of course, just like anything else, just like we talked about last week, compromise is the best way to solve a lot of problems, because at the very end, Maverick needs to be able to, rely on his wingman, follow the book, and Iceman, for the first time, I believe, at least to that scale, is in a combat situation that he can't handle, and he tries to go by the book, and he's failing. He might be perfect in school. He's the perfect student, but in a combat situation, his instincts aren't kicking in, and he's got too much adrenaline to really follow the numbers, do the things as Ice-like as he's customarily supposed to, and he gets himself into trouble trying to shoot down that MiG.
He lost his wingman. Wolfman goes down in the beginning of that fight, so it's Ice against 5 MiGs, and he can only, if it was 2-on-1, he'd maybe be able to do it, but suddenly he can't do it. And to your point about his procedural, how he does things, cool, collected, never breaks sweat, never makes a mistake. He does make a mistake.
Absolutely.
And because even before that, though, it's when Goose dies, the tragedy that causes Goose death, that's Ice's fault in a way, because
he didn't take the shot.
He's waited too long to disengage and let Maverick take over. And it's both. I know they say that Maverick wasn't at fault, but it was a combination of both Ice and Maverick. They couldn't work together, and Ice didn't want to give up the shot to give it to Maverick, and Maverick was basically riding too close because he wanted to get in there. So both of them committed their own egotistical style mistakes, which led to Maverick going through the jet wash, which he couldn't see, which causes a malfunction for the F-14 to go into the flat spin. And then it's just a simple tragedy that as they're ejecting, Goose hits the canopy, because the canopy, when it pops off, didn't clear the escape direction, angle, whatever.
I was just gonna ask, like, how did he die exactly? So he just, like, when he went up, like,
all right,
his neck broke, it looks like.
I mean, Jed, can you maybe explain the velocity of an ejection seat maybe better than I can? Can you?
I mean, it's just that
I'm gonna throw it at you.
Ejection seats work a lot differently these days than they did back then. But yeah, it's just the canopy didn't clear the distance that the ejection seat would reach. I think back then there was supposed to be an angular part of it where, like, one side would blow at a higher speed than the other side to make it kind of roll off the plane a little bit, and that didn't happen. I don't know the mechanics of it specifically, but yeah, for whatever reason, possibly because of the overall malfunction or the spin, maybe the spin had
spin probably had something to do with the physics of
it. Made it so that the canopy didn't get high enough. Goose slammed up into it and he broke his neck.
It's just simple.
It was a series of entirely plausible malfunctions. That's what I love about the sequence. It doesn't feel contrived. Yes, there's a jet stream that you don't see coming, but those happen. That's just how the sky works. It is statistically likely that you will encounter one at some point. And so, it's a perfectly constructed scene. And to your previous point about Iceman being partially responsible for the death of Goose, I think that's one of the most brilliant parts of Val Kilmer's performance, because they never address that in the movie, but the way that Iceman approaches Maverick afterwards, and he is so heartbroken about it. He 100% knows, and we only get that from the performance. If a lesser actor had tried to do that scene where Iceman comes and, I'm sorry about Goose, man.
Everybody always
tragedies.
liked him,
you would think, he doesn't feel guilty, whatever. He's just saying sorry because it's a polite thing to do. But the haunting look in Iceman's face, I believe that he feels responsible for Goose's death, and we don't see it. But I could totally buy, this might just be headcanon, that he goes through a similar process of as Maverick does in the next few scenes, where he might lose a little bit of his confidence, leading to those mistakes he made at the end of the film. Obviously, a more shallow one than Maverick's, but still a emotional toll that damages his ability to be as cool and collected in that sequence at the end.
Yep, and that, like you said, that is part of the brilliance of an actor like Val Kilmer, who can just get the emotion through a hesitation, an eye squint, an inflection in his face. That's how it works, and that's how good acting works. You don't get that these days. That's why Tom Cruise can still get it done, because he can give that kind of performance to this day. And Maverick's just his just descent into depression and fear.
Oh yeah,
because one of the things they harp on in that moment is when a fighter loses his edge like that, because it's Cougar all over again, except it's a different type of situation. It's loss, not fear, but loss. Because if a pilot in that kind of, like Jed said, you have to have that. It's an insane type of situation where you have to absorb all kinds of information and make lightning quick decisions. If you can't make those decisions anymore because of fear, you're dead. You're dead up there. And watching as we start the third act, and we were skipping around, whatever. I don't care anymore. As you start the third act, and Maverick is just gone down that rabbit hole of depression, and nobody pull it out, not even Charlie. We'll come back to Maverick and Charlie in a minute. No, he won't listen to anybody. He won't even listen to Meg Ryan, Goose's wife. He won't even listen to her. He says he loved flying with you, but doesn't matter. He just keeps holding on to those dog tags, and he can't get out of his head. Nobody can tell him to engage. And even though Viper keeps saying, just keep putting them up, just keep putting them up. And finally, the beginning of the turnaround happens when he's going to quit. He's going to quit, and they convince him to go see, and he gets convinced to go see Viper at his home on a day off. And Viper then gives us the story of Pete Mitchell Sr.
about his dad, right?
Yeah. And we learned that he flew with him and this and that. And right there, that's why I said early on at the beginning of the stream that there's still sort of a surrogate dad moment here, where Viper steps in and says, I knew your dad. He was great. I'm going to tell you something that could probably get us both shit canned, but I'm going to do it anyway, because he knows that Maverick needs this bit of information to even have a chance to get out, to know that his dad didn't screw up, that his dad died a hero, saving other people, and that Maverick can't keep eating himself up for something that wasn't his fault. Not really. It was a tragedy. And it's a great moment of powerful acting, powerful conversation, great dialogue, because Jed and I always harp on exposition, this and that. And in that moment, you're rapt attention listening to the story that Viper is telling, and you're not feeling bored by information dump. You're interested because you're getting a bit of information that the movie has been teasing you with for an hour and a half already. And you want to know it, and you get it, and you realize, okay, maybe Maverick has a chance now. Maybe he has a chance. All right, let's walk back a bit now, earlier in the movie. Back to the beginning, though. When they arrive there, we get an Did we expect a romance arc in this? Do you expect? Well, if you look,
yes,
at the poster,
it's an '80s movie.
Okay,
yeah, I would say so.
Well, for you get your romance arc, and I talked about before. This movie is also a collection of memorable scenes. You've lost that loving feeling. That is an iconic scene where everybody's serenading Kelly McGillis as Charlie, and it's funny as hell. And it's also another example of the epic egos of these guys. They walk in there; it's a standard thing. He said, "Look, to us. I think she's lost that loving feeling." No, Mav, no. Oh yes, she's lost that loving feeling. And then you notice everybody joins in.
Yeah,
everybody joins in. So, how do we feel about that? Is it a proper introduction to the romance of this movie in a happy-go-lucky kind of way?
Well, like I said, this is an 80s movie, so you expect romance no matter how tacked on it is. I feel like the romance is still unnecessary for this film. I think this film would be better if Charlie's role was completely cut out except for that love and feeling scene, and just have Tom Skerritt be the instructor for the rest of the movie. He fulfills that role anyway. Just let him fulfill that role, or the other guy who the bald pilot who helps instruct them a lot. Just have them fill in the technical side of things. But his romance arc with her doesn't really lend to a character arc. It doesn't really help him get over Goose, because she tries, but it doesn't do anything. So obviously it's Tom Skerritt who makes sense to get him through it. I do love that scene though, Lots of Love and Feeling, because it's character work. It sets up the dynamic between Goose and Maverick very, very well. It's a little bit of comedy, light in the mood. I think that scene is fantastic, but ended there where she's rejected him, where they go home and have they sleep together or whatnot. But that scene be for the purpose of character development rather than to start a romance arc that I think is ultimately irrelevant. I do, with all that said, caveated, I do think it is better than most Love at First Sight 80s movies, because it is built upon his ego, like you said.
Weeks. Yeah.
It makes sense where it's kind of like a trophy for him. He feels like he hasn't, his competitive spirit kicks in where he's like, I didn't win, I got to get this girl, and then evolves into something real. I do think it is written better than most similar stories of romance arcs in 80s films, but it's still ultimately unnecessary, and will be the part where I dock the most points at the end, is just cut her out. Give us more Tom Skerritt. Give us more fighter pilots. Give us more Goose scenes. Her scenes just feel flat. I don't like her performance, honestly. I think it works for that love and feeling scene where she's kind of like dismissive and whatnot. But besides that, I don't connect with her.
I'm going to stop you here because I'm going to surprise everybody. I completely agree with Jed.
Less love?
No, not less love. It's not so. I don't disagree on the fact that romance is unnecessary. I feel that Kelly McGillis is the weakest part of this movie. She's the 100%. Weakest part of this movie. Attractive.
There's the reason she wasn't in the second movie beyond her, hitting a wall.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
Jennifer Garner.
No, I thought wasn't it?
Was it Jennifer? And the other one,
no. It was what's her shit? Just that her name. Jennifer Connelly.
Jennifer Connelly.
It was a Jennifer.
I got the wrong Jennifer. You got the wrong Jennifer.
Connelly. Hey, Connelly still got it going on. That's the thing. Jennifer Connelly still is good. But point is, Kelly McGillis, attractive at the time, but outside of Top Gun and the Harrison Ford movie, I just had it and I lost it. Witness. She didn't have much of a career outside the 80s. Kind of just didn't. And I felt that I feel whenever I would watch this now, and especially watching with the critical eye for this run, if they had gotten a more super hot chick for this, it would have gone over better.
Yes.
She's not a bad actress. She was always fine, but she is the weakest thing. There's the chemistry between her and Tom Cruise is near non-existent for me. I don't feel it at all. Having watched many a Tom Cruise movie, sometimes with his then wife Nicole Kidman, but other times where he has love interests, especially if you've seen Risky Business with Rebecca De Mornay. Yeah, there was heat. Point is, there was no chemistry between them. Charlie is a stiff character. I feel that her behavior is it's questionable during it, because she should not have had a relationship with him, considering their professional stances in the program.
She's an instructor. He's a student, right? So it's kind of like
she doesn't have a rank, so there's none of the you can't have a relationship with somebody in your command or in your squadron, however you want to put it. But it still was an unprofessional thing. And I know it's the romance knows no boundaries. There's no boundaries. They will find love way, and they'll we get the other insert song, which I never remember the title of that one. The other insert song, the romance song where they're humping. I don't remember that song. But you get that. I want to say the romance exists to get that insert song in there. That was it. Because let's be honest, the soundtrack of this movie is epic.
Oh, awesome!
Beyond perfect.
Because it opens.
Right time making your danger zone.
It's so good. It's set
Yeah,
constantly has the right mood. Always the
Yeah.
high action octane rock when they're in the air, but the romance aspect is just it doesn't reach the heights, pun intended, of this movie. And
Yeah.
and Jed knows, our audience knows, I love a good romance arc. I'm a hopeless romantic. I love this stuff. But this one, it loses points for me in this movie. It does. That's where that's the majority of my points off for this movie.
Is of course it's also because he doesn't get her. Like it just like she kind of goes off and
he gets her in the end. She comes back.
But like it's she comes back to him, but like he never like they never officially like they never come a thing. Doesn't she leave? She goes to Washington.
No, she comes back. At the
she comes
scene,
back at the very end.
bar.
Is that her signal? That's her signal, and she's coming back for him.
Well, yeah, she came back. I mean, that was the thing. But
okay,
but it's just it's a lesser theme of a movie where the themes of brotherhood, surrogate father, hero's journey, mixed in with the good action.
It would have been better to spend that time on those other themes.
Perhaps, Or if you're gonna do it, get somebody where there's actual heat and tension and chemistry. I think if the chemistry had been better, it would have sold it more. But the chemistry just wasn't there for me. So I agree. Kelly McGillis, the weakest part of the movie. Charlie, the weakest part of this movie. Because listen, and we're saying that, and we still want to watch it, even though there's homoerotic volleyball.
How would you?
I was about to bring that up because the one thing that I'm glad that the romance arc is in there for is to slightly diminish the whole this movie is gay thing.
Homoerotic volleyball, baby. Flexing. Oh yeah. Oh, again, that's a famous ass scene. I was in a discussion with some people like 5 or 6 years ago. And it comes up. We're talking about Top Gun, and the first thing all the dudes say, homoerotic volleyball scene. Who wants to go watch Top Gun and enjoy some homoerotic volleyball? I mean, but it's homoerotic, but it's still it is masculine at the same time. We have to admit, these are fit
At least
dudes.
it's not twink gay. Scene.
No, these are fit dudes competing against one another, which kind of saves the homoeroticism of it. Because they're competing at high octane. They're even on the ground. They're not in the air, and they still have to compete. They have to be the best at what they do. And it adds to the flavor.
They're not army looking dudes.
No, they're not. They're not Timothy Chalamet and all that kind of wafy shit. It's for the girlfriends. Yeah, it's for the girlfriends.
Yeah.
It's for the girlfriends.
Definitely.
Hey, listen, girls deserve their beefcake as much as we deserve our cheesecake.
That's why we don't complain about the shirtless male scene in every Marvel movie. It's there for a reason.
Yeah, except it's unbalanced because we don't get any scantily-clad women in Marvel.
Yeah, we only complain about it to say, hey, why can't we have ours too?
Yeah.
Let both sides have both wants, all right? Show me some titties, you can have some abs. Fair trade?
Yeah.
Sounds good with me.
And so...
Wait, well, Kelly, I'm going to ask you, like, how would you grade Kelly McGillis? A 1 out of 10? Like, I would put her a 7. 7?
6.5.
6. Oh, Jed's like, no, that's too high.
I mean, I think she did it for me. You got to remember, I'm a young lad. Then she's competing with Carrie Fisher in a gold bikini at that point for me. Okay, there's no that, and then a few years later, I got Cindy Crawford posters on my wall. You got to understand, there was a lot of competition in the 80s, and Kelly McGillis didn't get it.
Yes, she wasn't top.
No,
she's like mid at best, right?
Mid. I mean, attractive enough, but didn't.
Yeah, she did the job.
Yeah, did enough.
But just not the love angle.
Yeah. So we got through that. Now let's focus on the competition that goes throughout the movie. Now the competition.
Yes, okay.
Where now you get the properly interjected fighter pilot training scenes. And here it is, as we said at the beginning of the stream, it's literally just a movie of training montages where they have, well, not montages, training sequences where no one's really in danger, which is why it's such a shock when Goose dies, because there hasn't been a danger aspect to this of people's lives in danger. It's simply go up, go down, go through this and that. And these sequences are great because what I love the most about, aside from the incredible practical effects, I love the back and forth dialogue during these scenes. when they're all jawing at each other, or basically, essentially, some of my favorite one-liners all the time. When they go after Jester, and let's go, I'm gonna get you. And then when he's done, yeehaw, Jester's dead. I love that. I love that stuff. Or when we're at the end of Act 2, and it's the critical "never leave your wingman" scene.
Wingman, yeah.
Suddenly, here comes Viper. They go, "Oh shit, it's Viper!" Like, oh shit. And
then Maverick still tries to pull the same shit on Viper as he did with Jester. It does not work out very well.
And Viper, as the veteran pilot, is like, "Come on, kid, come on, stay with me." Because Viper knows that Jester is going to take out whoever else they were up there with. Because that's the whole point of an F-14 is that it's a bigger plane than a Soviet MiG back in the day. It has maneuverability, it has firepower, but it still can't do the sharp turns and speeds of Soviet MiG back then, which is why you needed a wingman to cover you as you engaged. And they're trying to train them in this process at this school of wingman tactics, where one guy guards, one guy defends, one guy attacks, and you switch back and forth, and you keep the MiGs off balance. You negate the agility of the MiG, of the smaller plane. And Maverick doesn't understand it because he's Maverick. He's a solo artist. And he says, "Looking good? I'll get you later." And he goes off to fight Viper. And then out of nowhere, and Viper knows, he goes, "Damn, this kid's good," as he's getting up on him. But Viper knows he's just to play a waiting game, because his wingman's going to come around and he's going to get him, and then gets a shot. And I love Goose's line there. Ladies and gentlemen, we regret to inform you that your sons died because they were stupid.
Goose is great comic relief in the film. That's why I think his death also plays such a tonal change, not just because it's great loss in Maverick, but it aids the loss with us, because there's not a whole lot of laughing or jokes after he dies. You feel the absence. Not to the extent Maverick does, but the audience feels the absence starkly.
Yeah, because right after that scene, it's their last serious moment together where Maverick broke the rules. He didn't do the wingman, and Michael Ironside comes in. Jester comes and says, "That was some great flying up there, right up until you died. You never leave your wingman." And Maverick turns to Goose and says, "I don't know. I was stupid. I'm sorry. It'll never happen again. I promise." And he goes, "I know, Mav. I know." Because Goose has seen this shit time and again, that Maverick will always be Maverick, and he'll always forgive him. And then the next up they go, Goose is gone, and Maverick is broken. And now so we've set all the stage, we've talked about it. So let's go to the final sequence, which is, of course, the highlight of the movie. The actual combat, where now there is tension. There is life on the line. Death is a factor. They're at their graduation ceremony. Maverick had enough points to graduate. They get the call that there's an issue in the Indian Ocean. So they all get flighted out of there. And a great line as they go, where Viper says, "If you can't find anybody to be your real, call me. I'll fly with you." It's that nice surrogate dad shot of confidence that you love to see. And they get out there, and Maverick's on standby because he has Merlin, who's going to be, who played Merlin? Fuck, I don't remember. Anyway, he has Merlin, who's going to be his real, but you've got Iceman, Slider, and you got Wolfman, and I forget who his real was. And they get up there, and suddenly it goes from 1 MiG to 2 MiG to 3 MiG to 4 MiG to 5 MiGs. And Wolfman gets shot down real fast, and Iceman, who is the best, we have to admit, Ice is the best. Yeah. He's the technical best, and he's able to hold his own. And they got to put Maverick up there, and everybody's shitting their bricks because they don't know if Maverick's going to be all right in the head. They don't know if he's right in the head. And he gets up there, and he gets through an invisible wash again. Can't see it. And he's able to pull out of it this time. He's like, no good. And everybody's now freaking out because he disengages. And everybody's like, shit. Iceman goes, I knew it.
You can't trust him. Yeah.
I knew it. And then he had the moment. Talk to me, Goose. And he realizes that he can still do it. It's just he's watching, and you know they don't. And Jed, here's where it's good filmmaking of the time. You don't need to have the echoing voices of previous dialogue in the movie to understand.
I hate that.
You don't need to have that to understand that Maverick is reliving everything that's happened up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And he's able to realize that if he leaves, what wasn't his fault was Goose. It wasn't his fault that Goose died. But if he leaves now, Ice and Slider are dead. They're dead. And he does what a hero does. Kicks it into gear, re-engages, and you have an epic dogfight. Epic dogfight. To the point where you get the famous line where Ice is just trying to get that lock on. Another Mig's on Maverick's tail. Hollywood's going, Mav, we got to shake him. Mav goes, I'm not leaving my wingman. It's like, he learned his lesson. He learned his lesson.
Hero's journey.
So thoughts on the dogfight? Thoughts on the climactic dogfight? Go ahead.
Well, like you said, I hate when movies have that compilation of things that have happened previously in the moment of triumph or right before the moment of triumph, voiceover or anything like that, trying to remind you of the emotional beats of the film. Because I feel like it's the director and the filmmakers not trusting the audience to understand what they put out there, or a weakness of the script that those moments aren't memorable enough for the audience to remember on their own. This film trusted the audience, and those emotional beats were so vivid, so strong, that we saw them without the film showing them to us. We were thinking, oh my God, he's thinking about Goose. He's thinking about when he left his wingman. He's thinking about this. He's thinking about that. And we're more invested because of it, because we're having the flashbacks. We're not being shown flashbacks. We're having flashbacks. Yep. And then it puts us in the story. It puts us in the head of Maverick and immerses us in it. And then we go straight into the action. It's a great balance of a scene that makes us feel like the hero a little bit, I think, in a small way. But then, when you get into the action itself, 100% worth the wait. I love the little references to previous maneuvers that we've seen throughout the film, like the braking to let the guy pass you.
Red bias.
Mm-hmm. All the little maneuvers previously were common maneuvers, yes, to justify their usage, but they were put there to give the audience a sense of what was going on, so you didn't have to be handheld during the final fight. You were like, all right, when they do this happens, shown previously, and then we just like, oh yeah, it happened again. And it helps us stay involved in the action and keep the action at a quicker pace without having to reinforce or teach the audience different maneuvers or anything. So it keeps it tight. The actual fight is 10 minutes long, maybe? Like it's very, very short.
Yeah.
But it accomplishes so much. It gets us that high. It gets us that climax that we were searching for. And from a character perspective, as much as anything else. And I'm glad that we didn't get a face for the villain like we talked about earlier. The Russians are just generic. We don't know why the Russians are here. We don't know why this fight is happening. And they never really even figure it out. They're like, oh shit, the Russians have attacked us. We got to respond. And normally I would have a problem with that being left open as an unanswered question, but I think it aids immersion because as someone who's in the military, you're never told what's going on. You're just told to go do shit. All right. You never know why. And if you question it, you get in so much trouble. And so it makes sense why Maverick is just like, all right, we've got an enemy. We fight the enemy. And it's not about the world building. It's not about the world stakes. It's about his stakes. Yeah. And so they focused on that. And I think that was a great decision because of how character rich the story was. If this was the action heavy movie that we all assumed it would be going into it, I would have wanted those stakes. But it's character driven. So we had the character stakes.
It's a story that wasn't told and didn't need to be told.
Didn't need to be.
It didn't overcomplicate. It's a great way to put it.
Did they even mention like they're Russians? Like are we just assuming that?
They're Soviet MiGs.
I know they are.
I don't think they ever say the word Soviet or Russian, but MiGs was a plane that was pretty commonly known. Okay. So they were saying it without saying it.
They weren't Chinese.
Yeah. And you could see it was a white dude in the international relations scene, which is so great when they flips him the bird. Oh, I'm sorry. I hate it when it does that. Both of those scenes are fantastic.
Flies upside down on him. Yeah, that was an awesome scene.
I think that's one of the weaknesses of Top Gun Maverick is it takes that ambiguity of the enemy and makes it even more ambiguous. Like we never find out they're Russian. They never call them their enemy plane something distinct like the MiGs. And it's a little disappointing.
think
I know
had
why they did
red
it.
stars on the MiG planes or on the helmets. They didn't. There was no real identifying marks.
In this movie or Maverick?
No, in this movie.
Yeah, in this movie there wasn't a whole lot, but people knew what the MiGs were.
Yeah,
but in Top Gun,
it's 86. It's 86.
yeah, you assume it's the Cold War.
Yeah,
but in Top Gun Maverick, it feels a lot more shallow than even this because they don't even make references like that people can reasonably glean from.
But it lends the whole thing. And what I love about the fight sequence is that Ice and Maverick are equal badasses in this. I mean, Maverick is he finishes hero's journey, he comes back, but they both equally kick ass out there. You don't diminish Ice to raise up Maverick. It's a good way because Ice is not, because as we talk about, Ice is not a villain. He's another hero in this in his own right, and he has a right to shine alongside Maverick in this. So that's why the whole thing is great. It's great.
And that's why it's justified at the end when he's like, "I'll fly with you," and like you're still dangerous, but I'll fly with you anytime.
Bullshit. You could be my wingman. And Judy's right here. Maverick doesn't win Top Gun.
That's right.
Iceman gets it.
Yeah. Maverick loses a lot in this movie, but he gets his self-confidence back and he gets his ability back.
Which is more important than a trophy on the wall. And he gets the prize anyway. Yeah, a plaque on the wall. He gets the prize anyway in the end, though, because Tom Skerritt did mention early in the film, if you graduate and get your plaque up there, you have the opportunity to come back as a Top Gun instructor whenever you want. And Maverick does it anyway. So
yeah, due to the success of the incident, which I love the way they say the other side's going to deny it. So it's all going to get swept under the rug, but you're still a hero. And now you have your choice of station. And he says, I want to go teach. You teaching? Ah, hell no. I was like, what are you crazy? But fine. Good for you. God help
I actually hate him being an instructor. I feel like we got his confidence back. We got his action spirit back. So he'd be reinvigorated to stay on the front lines. I think the movie should have ended on the aircraft carrier after that big celebration scene.
And when he throws Goose's dog tags to show that he has moved beyond. He's able to let Goose go.
We don't need that bar scene. I mean, if we're cutting out the romantic storyline entirely, there's no point to that scene. So
yeah, exactly. And that's kind of it. I mean, this is it's a super solid movie all the way around. Great cast, great performances, outstanding soundtrack, incredible practical effects. This is no one had done anything really like this at this level.
I think the only visual effects like CGI were the green screens of the close-ups of the characters. Those were clearly green screen for the actors in the fake cockpits, but that's it.
Yeah,
you can tell a little bit, but it still looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's great editing, is what it is. To go close up to a jet flying and then cut to the cockpit, you don't lose, as you said earlier, you don't lose your sense of immersion. Your escapism remains intact, and that's what a movie going experience should be. Your escapism should remain open. Should remain locked in. And you should not be open to any other things distracting you from it. There shouldn't be a moment that completely destroys your viewing engagement. And that's a problem in modern cinema right now. There's so many things, whether it's a bad line of dialogue or a scene that doesn't make sense or characters suddenly being out of character from what you've seen them. You don't get that in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s when they were still making good movies. Now, that kind of shit happens all the time, and it breaks it apart. So there we go. Another one in the books. Dom, you are the guest, so you get to make your score first. So go ahead and score it out of 10.
So, it's a great movie. I love the soundtrack. Tom Cruise. The going back to the cast, he's like Val Kilmer, Anthony Edwards, and so. It's just a great, I guess, like an action. You can classify it as an action movie.
It's an action movie. Oh, it is. It is.
Totally. Yeah, it has. I love the storyline. What can I put it as? I would put it as like 8.1. I would put 8.1.
It's fair. 8.1.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's my week, so I get to go next. I give it a solid 9. Solid 9. I am never disappointed by this movie. It loses its points mainly because of Kelly McGillis, Charlie. It for me, it always takes me out of the movie. And I know we're talked about it. Movie doesn't break your escapism, and my escapism isn't broken. My immersion is broken, but I don't enjoy those segments because I'm not invested in Charlie. Kelly McGillis, I feel, was a little miscast in the end. But otherwise, it's just always glorious to watch it. Unashamedly American patriotic for the time, because back then you don't dare try and say boo against something pissing on the commies back then. You don't do that. So 9 out of 10. Jet.
Well, like we've all said, this film is absolute escapism. It epitomizes that term in a way that a lot of other films don't, while still miraculously achieving a degree of substance that you wouldn't expect. It's so much fun, but so deep and enriching that it balances both perspectives in a way that a lot of films from that era or today just fail so often with. And there are some minor issues with the film. I think the romance arc should be cut out entirely. I actually hate his ending as an instructor because I think that's antithetical to his arc in the film. I think it undoes everything and feels like that's what he should have done if he had actually lost his edge. If he lost his edge, you retire and go be an instructor and you stop being a combat pilot. But that's not what we saw. We saw him regain his edge. So why go to the same ending that would have happened if he'd lost his edge? And then one minor nitpick. It was part of the era, 80s movies, 90s movies, 70s movies. They all did this, so it's not that big of a deal. But I hate opening text that gives you information that you can get inside the movie. Star Wars is different. I'm not talking about Star Wars because that is, backstory. You need that information to understand, and it's not integrated into the movie. But Top Gun, we get the definition of Top Gun 20 minutes later with the commander of Maverick's commander saying, "You're going to Top Gun, the school of the best of the best." And I hate that you're the one going. We get all that context right then. I think it would have been better just to jump straight into that incredible opening scene with the music, because the text kind of slows things down before the music comes in and starts doing the ramp up. I think cut it out entirely. That again is a minor one, common for the era, but the bigger issues are the
I don't even register that stuff. Doesn't even register when I say
exactly. That's what I mean. Like, it's so common that most people don't think about it. But because of all that said, I think this movie deserves an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Wow, I have the lowest score.
That's a lot for Jed. That's a lot.
That is very high for me. But yeah, I the character work is so tight. Besides the ending of Maverick, his character arc makes perfect sense and is incredibly well written.
All right, there we go. All right, so we're still here next week before we take a short break. We'll be a little earlier next week. Jed, what you got for us?
Well, I decided it was time that we do a sci-fi movie and a sci-fi classic, and that at least the source materials classic. All right.
Okay.
I don't know. I've never talked to you about this movie, so I don't know if you're going to just bang your head against the table and scream.
Here we go. What is it?
The 2005 film, A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The book's a classic. The book is a classic.
Classic. I never actually read the book, but I still.
It was between that and The Martian.
Okay.
I haven't seen this.
Okay, I'll give you that.
I've heard of it, but I don't think I've seen it.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Y'all guys,
You like it, Jed?
I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I liked it as a kid.
I've seen it a couple of times. The cast is good. I'll say that. The cast isn't bad. Anyway, all right. So we'll be live at 3 p.m.
3 p.m.
3 p.m. next week, and then we'll be taking a short couple weeks odd break for reasons that we will remind you guys later of. Anyway, so thank you, everybody across the chats. We hope you had a good time. And if you're in my chat, you will be linked over. You'll be relayed over to tonight's Ballbusters Gaming Among Us, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, not 8, because Dermy refuses to tell fucking time like a normal person. Anyway, so thank you, everybody. We hope you have a good time. We will catch you next time. Until then, take it easy, everybody. Have a good night or day wherever you may be.